I'm Chief Cheryl Victorian. This is Waco PD on the beat. Whether it's crime or just getting to know the Waco Police Department, we're here to talk about things that matter most to you.
Hello, Waco, and welcome to Waco PD on the beat. I'm Sierra Shipley, the Public Information Officer.
And I'm Janae Draper with the Neighborhood Engagement Team.
That's right, and we work here at the Waco Police Department. What's wrong?
I forgot to say officer again.
Okay, try again. Okay. Go ahead.
And I'm Officer Janae Draper with the Neighborhood Engagement Team.
Excellent.
Yeah. You'd think as many times as we've done this podcast, I would get the intro down.
I know, but it has been a hot minute because I've been in and out with different conferences and trainings. You've been in and out. But we're back, and we're back with some exciting news.
Exactly. And it just shows that we don't we do these fresh every time.
Exactly. So we have the Behavioral Health Network. Stacey Stager is here again with us. We had her on a few episodes back, and we have another repeating a guest here on our podcast, which is Susie Murray, and she is in our dispatch center. And exciting news, ladies, right?
Yes.
Yes? Exciting news, new news. Okay, so first of all, mental health is a really big topic, right? But before we get into all this podcast, Stacey, before we were starting recording all this, you were talking about the difference, kind of moving from mental health and talking about behavioral health. And
Absolutely.
kind of doing that umbrella, and that's kind of like a different term that we're using moving forward here, talking about these types of illnesses that someone might be going through. So explain again why we're going to be using the term behavioral health for this podcast.
Yes. So as many of y'all know, we were formerly Heart of Texas Region, MHMR, and intentionally changed our name to Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network, as behavioral health is more encompassing in terms of covering not only mental health, but also substance use disorder and all others that fall under that umbrella. And so we want to ensure that the services that we provide are holistic and meeting all the needs as we come and engage our community, with behavioral health, and not just one sect, but all aspects.
So behavioral health is like a broad umbrella term that mental illness maybe falls under.
Absolutely.
So expanding it to behavioral health encompasses everything, not just mental illness, but everything that falls under that.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you guys might be wondering why we are talking about this and why this is such a big deal and why we have our dispatch director here in this room with us, and that's because we're going to have some new positions in our dispatch center.
Yes, we are partnering or collaborating with the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network to have behavioral health clinicians inside of dispatch.
And that is amazing news.
It is.
Like that, like we were just talking about that before the podcast. I heard whispers about it, a little bit, and I was like, man, that's going to probably take forever. And then here we are, and I'm like, wow, like how fast it happened was absolutely awesome. And the fact that, this position is coming available, it's much needed position. I think it's going to be very beneficial to the city.
Yeah. Well, and so remind me, Susie, you guys went somewhere to a different department in a different state.
Yes.
Because they have this, right? Where was that at?
We went to Denver and we went to Austin.
Uh-huh.
So we've been to Denver and we've been to Austin to check out their operations and how they've incorporated having behavioral health, mental health clinicians inside of their dispatch centers.
Yeah. And so how many positions, Stacey? Now, these are positions that are going to be hired by BHN, right?
Yes, absolutely. And the three positions we currently have open and on our website, it's www.hotbhn.org. Got to put that in there.
That's
so
right.
So y'all know where to go.
If you guys didn't catch that, she said the applications are open now.
They are open, hot off the press.
That's right.
Interviews happening. So the three positions that we currently have are program manager over the Heart of Texas Crisis Call Diversion Program. So if you hear Crisis Call Diversion Program, that'll be what's associated with what we're speaking about today. But we have a program manager. It's for a clinician that will provide oversight for the whole program and supervision to do clinical staffing, right? Because we know that this work is really difficult. And so we're going to have that position to aid in managing the program as well as the calls that come in and helping to work through more difficult cases. We also have an extended MCOT. So extended MCOT is Mobile Crisis Outreach Team. That individual is going to be housed in dispatch as well. They're going to be available to go out on calls. So if we get a behavioral health call and they need additional supports, that individual will be housed there and be able to go out on those calls as needed. The third position is a crisis call specialist, and that individual will be the individual that takes the calls. So as they come in, they're going to talk to the person, see what their needs are, and work through the resources and what that person needs and complete a crisis assessment. So those three positions are going to work very closely together. And Susie, I don't know if you want to talk more about really the purpose of this program and how we're here to serve y'all, you know.
One of the things that we deal with a lot in dispatch, taking 911 calls and even non-emergency calls, are those calls where police really aren't needed. It's not it's not a criminal offense that's taking place. A lot of times it's someone needing social resources or mental health services. But because we don't have those things to provide to them, our only course of action is to send an officer to go check on them.
Yeah.
And make sure that they're okay for the most part. There are sometimes we're able to talk to them because sometimes they're just wanting someone to talk to. Nothing's really wrong. They're not giving us any indication that they're going to harm themselves or anybody else. But we have those frequent callers, right? Mm-hmm. That as soon as they call, we recognize their name. So we know who they are. So we kind of gather and we know their baseline and that how they operate and how they talk. And so we can communicate with them for a couple minutes on the phone. And that may be good for a few days or a few weeks before we hear back from them. So what we'll be able to do with Stacy's team is that when we get those calls, instead of us staying on the phone with them, we'll be able to give them over to one of the behavioral health personnel, and they can talk to them and help them with those resources that they may need.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is going to be 3 positions, and we're on a 4-year grant, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yes. And so hopefully, data will be collected and all that, and then as those 4 years kind of creep up on us, because we'll know they'll go by real fast, right? Then hopefully we can do something to where it's that program that is absorbed with, whether it's in the city's budget or something that we continue with BHN, and anything like that would be awesome. So that's kind of the, a little snippet of what we're doing, which is so cool. Susie, talk about, I'm gonna mess that up every time, Stacy and Susie. I'm gonna go back.
I know. You can call us Stuzy.
Stuzy.
As much time as we spend together, and I'm always hassling her,
That's going to stick. That's catchy, Stuzy.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like
it's
it.
kind of like Stussy from, what was that, the 90s? Remember that?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm that old. Nobody, to all the listeners out there, when I just made that comment, everybody in the room just looked at me blankly. So,
Oh my goodness. Reminder note to look up Stussy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so tragic.
Well, anyway. So, Stacy, talk about how excited BHN is to be actually first, I want to talk about who called who and was like, "Hey, I have got this idea. We need you." Who, do you remember that? Do you remember that?
When did we first meet, Susie?
Or what?
Denver.
Yeah.
It was the Denver trip that Stacy and I met.
Okay.
So this was already going on in the background between our administration and BHN's administration.
Yeah.
But I don't know how the dispatch piece came to be, but I know I ended up on the trip to Denver, and that's where Stacy and I met.
Mm-hmm. We started realizing kind of what this was going to look like, and we're like, I think this is coming down to us. Like, Susie, I think this is us. Like, that's what this is.
I think that's why they brought us here.
I'm catching on.
These are really cool ideas, and we got some things to figure out here.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And then our friendship blossomed.
A fast friendship, that's for sure, right?
For sure.
And we knew, I mean, even unbeknownst to one another, we're constantly working together because, with our extended mobile crisis outreach or our mobile crisis outreach team that we currently have, we get police consults. So we get calls through dispatch where an officer is out on scene, a deputy is out on scene, and they want a clinician to come out, for a second pair of eyes, to do a crisis assessment, and to divert from the ER, to divert from jail, right? Because that's our objective here. We want to ensure that law enforcement is out doing what they need to do and are freed up to do the things that they need to be doing. And so really this relationship has been going on long before we were actually,
it'll just it'll be easier now because you guys are in the dispatch center. You guys are getting those calls as we
in
are.
real time. Yes.
And it's not like the transfer, like you're literally on the same floor in the center. But even though you're transferring the call, like the communication level, sometimes when over the telephone, but you're all right there and the communication levels work. So y'all can actually see, we were talking about this before too, like see the calls that actually come into dispatch.
Yes.
You can see the mental health calls or the behavioral health calls that come in, and it's just a better understanding altogether.
Absolutely. And whereas right now we may receive a call from law enforcement. They're currently on the street. They're currently with this individual that is experiencing a behavioral health crisis, right? And so then we meet there and so on and so forth. I think when we are able to intervene at this level, it's gonna expedite the services we're able to provide, and it's also more trauma informed, right? Because if somebody's experiencing a crisis and there's this person out on scene and then you have to wait for this other team to come out, then they're going to ask a lot of the same questions again, right?
Yeah.
And so they're having to go through it again. And then wherever their disposition is, right, wherever they end up, they may go through another intake process. And so really, it's just a more trauma-informed and mindful way to handle behavioral health crisis, right?
And that's actually very beneficial too, because as much, as we're trained, as officers are trained in behavioral health and stuff like that, we don't know all the resources that y'all provide. And so having, even though we go out on scene, we might provide something to listen, someone for them to talk to and be able to listen. We just don't know everything there is to know. And so now having this position, it's almost taken out the middleman of how it was before. Like we'd go out on scene and we'd still end up calling y'all. Now it just goes directly to y'all. They can get the resources and actually the knowledge that they need to know. And then it frees up an officer for law enforcement criminal offenses.
Yes. So. Absolutely. Officers, we still will send an officer if necessary. So in the case that it's a suicide in progress, right? They're using a weapon, knife, gun, something of that magnitude, we will still follow our normal protocol by dispatching police to that location. However, Stacy's team will be able to talk to them. So right now, we're taking on that responsibility.
The dispatcher
is staying on the line until police can get there. And we all know, if you've been in dispatch at any time, the phones don't stop ringing.
Yeah.
And when it's those kinds of calls, we can easily end up on the phone 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, sometimes depending on where the caller is. And if this is a city response or a county response and all of that, if we can get the location, the proper location. So we have all those things to take into account, but now we can give this call over to someone who has that level of training and can talk to that person and can de-escalate the call better than we can, in a sense, because this is what they do.
Yeah. And sometimes it might even be prior to police arriving if they have to be on scene, which might help, again, de-escalate things going down.
Yes.
Again, it's very beneficial and safety reasons. So,
And I think the collaboration, too, also builds trust in the community, because I think as we work together and have a better understanding of what the other does, right, that distrust oftentimes comes from lack of understanding, lack of insight into what the other is dealing with day to day. And so I think the collaboration too helps with that, because I think as we're working together in the community with law enforcement, Waco PD, Hard Text Behavioral Health Network, and they see that we're all working together for the betterment of our community.
Yeah, for
and
the same goal.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely. Susie, how often would you say, I know I didn't tell you to come up with any numbers for this, but how often would you say a behavioral health call might come into your dispatch center?
Oh, gosh. And we take those calls daily.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not as severe as a suicide, in progress or, something like that. Sometimes it's a parent that needs help parenting their child.
Yeah.
It's those kinds of calls where the parent just needs a little extra support in those areas. Sometimes it's welfare checks. Like, hey, I got this weird message from my cousin. She normally doesn't talk like this.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about her.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she's just going through a tough time and family didn't know of anyone else to call except for 911.
Yeah.
And we do what we can as far as, sending an officer out for a welfare check, to make sure that they're okay. So we get quite a bit of those calls. And our busiest call time is usually the afternoon second shift.
Oh, yeah, I can speak to that. That's the one I worked. So,
So we get the bulk of those calls during second shift. And that's where we're going to focus having the mental health and behavioral health personnel is during that time frame.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are they going to be staffed every day? I know you said like their hours, so they're not going to be there every 24 hours, but are they going to be there 7 days, or what? Are we still working out these details?
No, we finally.
Yeah, Monday through Friday for now.
Okay.
And it'll
okay.
be 3 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Okay. Yeah. So
Okay.
a
So
big
it's
portion of
good. And, I think that's the idea, too, of this being a brand new program is we tried to make it as, people typically a lot of people typically go for the jobs, the 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, because it's predictable. They have kiddos, that kind of thing. So we tried to kind of fall in line with that a little bit, but then deviate going a little bit later into the evening.
Right.
And so, but hopefully, a lot of programs like with Integral Health in Austin, and I'm sure with Denver as well, they start out, smaller to
Sure.
for
I mean, we have to,
proof
yeah,
Yeah,
we
you
have
gotta
to see it to make
justify
sure
it.
it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so ideally, and we know because we saw this at Integral Health, in Austin, that they started in the same capacity, that they had fewer days, fewer hours, but over time, as there was proof of concept, that they were able to expand and see where that need was,
Right. I was going to say, you guys went to those cities, and I'm sure their programs were well advanced
Robust.
to what we're
Yes.
starting with.
Yes,
And so,
absolutely.
I mean, that's got to be a little bit intimidating, right?
Not really.
Okay, good. I like the
Yeah.
positive energy.
Yeah.
So
Gotta
not
start
really
somewhere.
intimidating.
Crawl before you
Yes.
walk.
Yeah.
So it was good to see where we could go.
Right.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So that's how I saw it. Didn't get intimidated by what they had, but just I'm like, okay, so in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, this is where
Look what we can have.
Yeah, this is where we can be if we
Yeah.
keep this up and we keep the momentum. We have to start somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Waco's only growing, and it's
Yes.
only going to get bigger. So these
We
calls,
keep
these calls
saying
aren't
that.
going away.
No,
You know,
they're
if anything,
not.
they're going to come in more. And so having that, and like you said, seeing where it can grow from here is actually really good because again, like Waco is only growing, which is a great thing.
And with such a big topic that behavioral health is,
Yes.
and we and the society as a whole has said it's okay to say you're not okay. It's okay to reach out for
Yes.
help and talk about it. And that's what the people are doing is they're reaching out. So we have to partner with organizations like BHN, and BHN has to partner with organizations like us
Yes.
at the police department to help reach those individuals
Yeah.
that we tell reach out.
Right, you have to have a
We
response
have
to
a
that.
response
Yeah.
to them.
Because we
Yeah.
want them to
No.
call. We
Yeah.
don't want someone to suffer in silence.
Absolutely.
We don't want them to take drastic measures and and to do something that would harm themselves, hurt their families, or anyone else. So if you're hurting, call us.
yeah.
Call us.
Yeah.
And that was so, I had a thought, but it just lost me. But I was going to say something.
I'm sure it was so good.
No, it's gone.
It's
You think on it.
I'm
You
gonna
come
think
back
on it,
to it.
yeah.
So, because I was going to say, obviously, you know, our officers and our dispatchers, we only scratch the surface when it comes to training for behavioral health type calls and issues and things like that. And Stacy, we know that BHN and the individuals that are going to be hired through this new program obviously are going to have a much more extensive kind of training. So what is that training going to look like for these positions?
So you're correct. We do. We have roughly a 2-week training when individuals are hired through our agency, and they have individualized crisis training. So from crisis assessments, when we're doing our suicide assessment scales, all those different things, and in terms of how to de-escalate, how to complete treatment planning, safety planning, things like that. So in really just working with individuals in a trauma-informed, person-focused way, you know, and so person-centered, you know, is very, very important to us. And so really saying that we want to serve each individual as a unique person, right? Because it's easy, especially, and I'm sure, Susie, you can speak to it, when you're getting so many calls coming through the day, that can be difficult, but to see each call, each person as unique and their situation is unique, and how to handle that appropriately and respond in the best way possible, providing the least restrictive options possible.
Yeah.
And so, that's really where we're at. And then the individuals that are going to be coming in from our agency and embedding into dispatch, they're going to be learning all of y'all's ways as well. And so they're going to kind of be dual trained, right? Because they're going to learn.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to after you were done, but you started it. So.
And that's what Susie and I have been going over. And I know we've been coming over and shadowing at dispatch and sitting in on calls and just learning the ropes, you know, because that's a whole other energy and a whole other culture.
Yeah. So I got to ask, like, what do you think? Like, after sitting in on some of it, like.
Yeah, it is, you know, with behavioral health calls, my coworkers and the team that I work with, the mobile crisis outreach team, our continuity of care and our respite teams, they're just amazing people. But the calls that we're getting, while diverse, are behavioral health calls. And so sitting in on these calls for hours at a time has been really interesting, because you're going from there's a car wreck, and then next thing you know, I can't find this person, and then the next thing you know, it's this, and it's wow. I thought crisis calls on the behavioral health side were intense.
Dispatch is a roller coaster.
It is.
Yeah. And I have mad respect, because just like you said, like the amount of just calls and sometimes as officers, like Susie, you mentioned it, like there's some things that y'all take care of on the dispatch end that never gets to the police, you know, dispatch to us. So, I mean, y'all are, and y'all are doing it sometimes with a lot of less people than you should be doing it with.
Yeah. I mean, we answer 2.5 to 3 times more phone calls than we ever dispatch.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, and that was like amazing to me, because I knew it, but it doesn't resonate until like you actually say it and you're like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I knew that. But then like thinking like, hey, we actually take some calls, talk to these people, you know, do this, and then get off the phone and don't actually dispatch them, because we get dispatched a lot of calls.
Yeah.
But then to think that y'all take some that we never even see on top of that, because those phones are always ringing. I don't know about you, but if I walked out of the 9th floor, I would just be hearing the phone ringing.
Yeah. Like, I was going to say, because I get that sometimes too, where I think my phone's ringing and it's not, but I thought I could have swore I heard it. Susie, is that what you have when you're at home? You hear the 911 line ringing?
No, I tune it out pretty well.
Oh, thank goodness. I feel like I would hear it all the time, just embedded.
My family keeps me busy.
That's good.
That's good, though.
So you don't hear it as much, but when you're here, you hear it a lot.
Yeah.
They're unbelievably, like, that's the other thing, is in terms of, like, just mad respect, they're calm. I mean, they are up there, and it is, like, I do remember the first day when I went up there with y'all, and it was like, ring, 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 and it's just all happening, and they're all just taking their calls, and it was mind blowing just how unbelievably.
And then just move on to the next. No matter what happened in the call before, they just move on to the next one.
It was calm. It was professional. It was on top of it, and just that. Wow. Yeah. So they're very inspiring to us, you know.
Well, just as Stacy was blown away by the amount of dispatching that's going on in dispatch. I like that. Susie, anything that you learned or a light bulb that went off in your head when you were learning about the behavioral health side of things and those kinds of calls and just this collaboration?
So the call aspect is kind of like, we deal with those calls a lot on our end, but it's just the idea of having someone who this is their specialty.
Yes.
This is what they do. That's the part that I look forward to the most, because I'm looking forward to myself and my staff of us being able to get tips from them on how to handle these calls, especially when they're not there.
Well, because I'm sure, I was going to say, these dispatchers that we have now are going to be able to hear and learn from these clinicians that are coming in, and they're going to be able to utilize that in their own calls.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think some of that would be some of the best training too. Is like you can go through classes, but actually experiencing it.
Experiences are
you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna learn so much
especially
more.
in this kind of field, it's you can read about this in books all day long, and it's
not until you're hands on.
You get that first phone call, and all of a sudden that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is just, I'm still blown away again. Like I just found out that this is coming to Waco. Like I heard bits and pieces, but to find out these, it's actually happening now. Like I'm mind blown because I think it's awesome. And I'm so excited that this is happening and you're coming in. I just had to throw that. I still have not remembered what I was going to say a second ago, but I'm still just super excited that this is happening. And I think it's been much needed.
Yeah. I was going to say, because, we don't have you were an officer out on the streets, but we don't have a current officer out here on the streets. But, you can attest to just that, of the calls that when you guys go out there. As an officer, I'm sure there's times where you do all you can, but you know that
there's sometimes there's a couple times like going out on calls, just from the training, we've got bits and pieces and a whole lot of training, but we don't have like just a broad range of specialized, like when it comes to that. And so there would be some times and I think also too, sometimes they would be reserved with it being an officer trying to open up as much.
Yeah.
And so
just someone in uniform is intimidating.
Yeah. And so, there might be some times where it might be an EDO or it might not be an EDO, but I felt like, man, I wish I could have done more or could have offered him more, but I just didn't know. Yeah. And so I feel like this is going to be extremely beneficial. Again, just having y'all there with those amount of resources that y'all have that we just don't know or are out there. So
yeah, because at the end of the day, this is an opportunity for us to better serve our community.
Exactly.
We have people in our community who are hurting.
Yeah.
And they don't need another police response. They need social services.
Yeah.
They need someone that can talk to. They need someone that can give them some coping skills. They need someone that can direct them on how to navigate their mental health, maybe coordinate to get them into a treatment plan, those things that in a perfect world that we would be able to offer that as a police department. But the reality is police officers are there to enforce the law. They're there to deal with criminal offenses. And the time just isn't there to really give a lot of these behavioral and mental health situations the time that it needs.
Yeah, exactly. Because that would be the thing, working on the street is you've got all these calls, and you would love to spend hours and hours because sometimes they just need people there to talk to. And not saying that we rush call to call. That's not all I'm saying.
Right.
But we also have to manage certain things as well. And again, sometimes just having them, as much as I would try and say, hey, you're not in trouble, I'm just here to help, still being that officer in uniform was still kind of sometimes intimidating for me. Now, I try to break that barrier as much as I could, but sometimes just it still was hard to see through that. And so, again, I think just having someone specialized in that to kind of work through that, because, again, they need time to work through, they are hurting, they are feeling these things, they don't know where to reach out to, what to do, how to process it, and have someone kind of work through those steps with them. That's actually, this is their specialty. What they do is really, much needed and in the community. And it's not, especially when we're in, it's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
And that's what we want people to do, is to know to reach out. But when we say we want people to reach out, we need to have a place for them to reach out to.
Absolutely.
And now, Susie,
Stussy.
as you said it earlier, sometimes people call because they don't know what else to call, so they call
don't know where else to
911.
call.
And
Yes.
so now having that direct,
Yep.
avenue right there is really, really beneficial. So again, I'm excited. I've said it 10 times, but I'm super excited.
Well,
I think it's a great step.
It is, and I think the other idea is that there's no wrong door to get help, and that's what this
Yeah.
opens up to. I mean, people could call, and it was already, this way, but I think even more so, in terms of being able to call in crisis. They've always called, 911 traditionally, because we're trained that from an early age, to do that. But I think this will definitely offer more support.
Well, I can't wait to see where all this goes. I know that we've got you, Stacy, and you, Susie, that are, basically leading this situation here, practically, right?
Stussy.
Stussy.
She's saying it out loud. It's real now. It's real now.
But I know that our community is in good hands with you guys, because you do have a passion for your work, and I've seen you guys talk, and just the love and care that you have for our community says a lot. And so I think that this is only going to show some really positive outcomes. So yeah, anything else that you guys want to say or talk about? Let's say again the amount of positions that are open and where they can go to apply.
Yes, again, 3 positions available at this point through the Heart of Texas Behavioral Health Network website. So www.hotbhn.org, and we have a program manager position, a clinician. That might be a licensed clinical social worker, a licensed professional counselor. They'll provide oversight for this program and also provide clinical supervision for the individuals that are there. The next position is our extended mobile crisis outreach team position. So this individual will respond in real time to crisis calls that come in and may need in-person intervention. And then the third position is the crisis call specialist, and so that individual will be the call taker, the individual that once the 911 call comes in and it's deemed a behavioral health call and it goes to this clinician, then they'll speak with that individual over the phone to see what resources they can provide, complete a crisis assessment, and then help determine if the extended mobile crisis outreach team is necessary. So we're excited to get this going, and those are the positions. So get on and look them up.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you both so much for joining us here. And I'm already going to say this now, because I know at some point, I'm sure we're probably going to be doing a year later, maybe podcast with those that we've hired to talk about what it's been like the last year and how it's changed, and our stats. Yes. So I'm sure I'm already going to put it out there that we're going to come in here, and the first thing we're going to go, wow, it's been a year since we sat.
That's exactly how it's going to go.
And that's exactly how the next podcast is going to start on this. So I just wanted to put that out there now. So when we come back, I can come and say, I told you so.
and then y'all are going to do your research, your 90s research.
Yes.
And then you're going to be like,
we're gonna.
oh, that's it.
So is it a show? Is it a song? Because if it's a song, we're going to play the song at the beginning.
No, there was a store back in the 80s and 90s, I guess probably really early 90s, Gadzooks.
No,
Nope, she got the blank stare again.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting it. Susie? I'm alone.
Oh, Stacey.
I'm alone. Okay. Google Gadzooks. Stussy. Vans were still a thing. Chucks were still a thing.
Okay, yeah, we know those. We know
Familiar
those.
with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a type of shoe.
No, it's just a brand.
Oh, it's just a
Stussy.
brand.
Yeah. And they actually, I think that they were selling it at Target for a while, like way cheaper than what it was back in the day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Fast forward, if it kind of went out of style, but then like got picked up.
All
You're
right.
gonna
We're
know.
all going to Google this
There's
and
your
we're going to
pop
see
culture
it
for
and we're
the
going to be
day.
like, that's
Oh,
what it
that's
is.
what
You will.
is.
You will. And I'm
Yes.
sure I can find 6th grade Stacy in a Stussy shirt. I think I had
Oh
one.
my
And
goodness.
Yes.
I wore it at least 2 times a week. It was like my one name brand. Like I was a cool girl in that shirt.
Yeah. Well, now you guys need Stussy shirts.
We might. We're
Yes.
gonna come up with that. We're gonna come up with our own brand.
Don't give her any ideas, Sierra. Don't give her any ideas.
Oh, it's happening.
I think this is the last time I'm going to be given a mic. I'm so sorry, but
No.
in a year, we'll have this discussion.
Yes.
We'll revisit.
Yes.
Yes.
And you'll be wearing your Stussy shirts when you come in.
I am, and is there like a branding issue with this? Like, I hope. I'm so sorry if like I'm breaking all like infringement rules because we're talking about.
No, not
another
sponsored.
brand.
They know that. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Solid.
We don't
Good.
get sponsored.
Okay. But I mean, if Stussy wants to sponsor us, I mean, Vans, if we all, hey, whoever wants to come in and
Get
give us
more
some.
clinicians then.
I know.
Right.
Come on, Vans. You want to help? You
Yeah.
want to help the world?
It can be like the comeback of like, because like Stanley's, they made a big comeback. I couldn't believe that. I was like, my grandpa has this cup.
Stanley
The
Cup?
Stanley cups?
Oh.
Yes, they've been around for years.
And that's a thing now.
Yes, it's all like a big rage now. I was like, yo, my grandpa has a Stanley cup. Like, these weren't like, this ain't some new cup.
It's all well. See, I think your podcast just like elevated. It went from like law enforcement, behavioral health to like pop culture. I think
There
this
you
is
go.
great. All
Yes.
inclusive.
Yeah,
See,
all
that's
inclusive.
cool.
We are.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're on a train right
Well, that
now.
was that was the podcast pop culture segment at the very end there.
It was. I wonder how many people are listening to this have already Googled
Do it.
Figure it
Stussy.
out.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comments.
Yeah. See if Stacy's alone in this.
I know
Yes.
the Gadzooks thing that was in the mall. It was kind of like Hot Topic meets I don't know, Forever 21 kind of place.
Okay.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
like it.
Charlotte Ruse.
Okay.
Okay,
now.
okay,
Yes.
okay,
We got
yeah,
that.
kinda
Okay,
there.
there we are.
Yes.
We're awake. Okay.
We're awake.
Okay. I want to read the comments on this one. It's
Oh,
kinda
yeah.
goodness.
Yeah,
Oh
post
my
the comments, let us know.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you all for joining us here on Waco PD on the B. If you're interested, apply for those positions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get something going. Start something new and
Be part of
be
like
part
how
of a
it
good thing.
grows. Yeah. You can, start out and like, again, I mean, you'll get to be on a podcast in a year. And then, but more importantly though, you'll get to see this program build from the ground up and get to see it develop, which to me, I feel like is probably going to be the greatest part is to look back and be like, wow, I mean, y'all have got to be proud to, I know it's a lot thrown on you when you're in like Denver, Austin, you're like, oh, this is us. But to look back and be like, man, like, look
This is
at
us.
how it's
We did it.
grown,
Yeah.
and then other departments, come to Waco to see, maybe they're wanting to start it, and then so y'all be the Austin where departments come and look and like, hey, what did y'all do? How'd you get started? So that'll be something to be very proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys very much, Stacy and Susie, also known as Stussy. Thank you guys. You have a good day. I'm Sierra Shipley, the Public Information Officer.
And I'm Officer Janae Draper with the Neighborhood Engagement Team.
Have a good day, Waco.
Waco PD on the beat. The heartbeat serving